Welcome to datascience.show, the podcast where data science meets executive leadership. We talk with top AI and analytics thought leaders about turning data into real business impact. If you're a C-level leader or data expert shaping the future, you're in the right place.
Imagine a personalization pilot that tripled click-through rates. The team celebrated, dashboards lit up, engineers high-fived. And yet, 3 months later, revenue had not budged. The board is asking, did we just optimize engagement, or did we actually change customer behavior that matters? Hello, I'm Mirko. Today, we're talking about causal decisioning, a decision-first playbook that helps executives prove whether AI investments actually drive business outcomes.
Quick roadmap. I'll define what I mean by causal decisioning and uplift in plain English. Map the minimal evidence leaders should demand. Walk through pragmatic experiment designs. Show a 2-minute worked example you can use at the board. Cover rollout and governance, and finish with a 90-day checklist and toolkit you can download. No heavy math, just decision rules you can act on.
So, what is causal decisioning? At its core, it's the practice of designing decisions, not just predictions, so you can measure the change and action causes. Uplift is the language we use for that change. The difference in the outcome that occurred because you took the action versus what would have happened otherwise. In executive terms, did the model move the needle on revenue, retention, cost, or another business outcome that matters? If you can't answer that, you're still in the realm of cool tech, not accountable investment.
Why should leaders care now? Tools and models are abundant, budgets are constrained, and boards want measurable ROI. Proving causal impact turns pet projects into fundable programs. In 30 to 90 days, you should be able to commission and get early evidence that either justifies further spend or tells you to stop, and both are valuable for resource allocation.
Let's move to the core. What should leaders demand before they greenlight an AI initiative? First, translate predictions into impact metrics. If the team builds a propensity model, don't accept model accuracy as the target. Ask, which KPI moves if we act? Revenue per user, churn rate, cost per acquisition, and how will we measure it? Second, require a pre-specified primary metric and success threshold. Say what uplift counts as material before you run the pilot. Third, insist on an experiment or credible counterfactual. Without a control, you don't have evidence of causation, only correlation. Now, the practical part. Experiment designs executives should recognize. The gold standard is randomization, A/B or randomized controlled trials, because randomization isolates the effect of the action. When you can't randomize, use holdouts or stepped wedge rollouts. In some operational settings, credible quasi-experiments like difference in differences or regression discontinuity provide defensible evidence, but they require careful assumptions and independent validation. Important, trade-offs matter. Randomization gives clarity, but may slow rollout. Quasi-experiments are faster, but need stronger caveats at the board level. A few quick rules of thumb executives should require. Keep the treatment assignment auditable. Pre-register the analysis plan so teams can't peek and p-hack. Define a primary outcome and a minimum detectable uplift that justifies scale, and plan for replication. Those are the gates you tie to funding decisions.
All right, let's do a short, concrete worked example. You don't need a statistics degree for this. Suppose you run a personalization treatment on a sample of users. Control group average revenue per user is $10 over 30 days. Treatment group average revenue per user is $10.50. That's an absolute uplift of 50 cents per user, a 5% relative uplift. If your test included 10,000 users in each arm, multiply the 50 cents by the number of treated users to estimate incremental revenue. So, 10,000 times 50 cents equals $5,000 of incremental revenue over the test window. Now compare that to the incremental cost of the initiative. If cost of rollout and operations for scaling is projected at $50,000, this single test window suggests you need either a larger true effect or repeatable replication before funding scale. The dashboard you show the board should surface these numbers: control mean, treatment mean, absolute uplift, confidence interval, and simple ROI arithmetic. That's the decision data they need.
A moment on interpreting the dashboard. If the confidence interval for the uplift crosses 0, treat the effect as inconclusive. Don't let optimism or dashboard heat confuse you. If the uplift is small but statistically precise, ask whether it's material relative to cost and strategic importance. If it's large but noisy, require replication or a scaled staggered rollout before full spend.
Operationalizing results. This is where many teams fail. First, protect against peaking bias. Pre-specified checkpoints, not continuous monitoring for a win. Second, stage rollouts. Start small, monitor key safety and business signals, then ramp. Third, integrated monitoring in production. Instrument treatment assignment, log exposures, and keep an eye on treatment effects over time. Sometimes uplift decays or reverses. Finally, tie roadmap funding to gates. Pilot pass, replicate, and sustained ROI before you expand budget.
Governance, ethics, and legal checkpoints are non-negotiable. Always confirm consent and privacy constraints up front. In regulated domains, lending, healthcare, insurance, consult legal and compliance before experimenting. Include a legal checklist in your experiment brief, data scope, retention policies, opt-out mechanisms, and criteria for pausing experiments if adverse outcomes appear. If you can't run a live experiment for legal reasons, use synthetic holdouts or carefully documented quasi-experimental designs and flag the limitations in executive materials.
Here's a prioritized 30 to 90-day playbook you can action this quarter. Day 0 to 30, pick one high-impact use case, translate model outputs into a single primary KPI, and draft an experiment brief with the metric, success threshold, and assignment plan. Day 30 to 60, run the pilot with pre-registered analysis, monitor safety signals, and gather early estimates. Day 60 to 90, replicate or run a staggered rollout. Present a short board packet with the dashboard we discussed, and use the result to gate funding. In parallel, build a stakeholder map, product, legal, operations, finance, and keep them informed at each gate.
We've built a causal decisioning toolkit to make this practical: an experiment brief template, a simple dashboard layout, KPI translation examples for finance, and a legal/consent checklist. Use these artifacts to commission evidence and tie funding to measurable ROI, not to chase vanity metrics. From models to measurable value, that's the difference between experimentation and accountable investment.
Before we close, 3 executive takeaways. 1. Demand an explicit primary metric and pre-specified success threshold before any pilot runs. 2. Require an auditable treatment assignment and an analysis plan. No retroactive hero statistics. 3. Tie funding to replication and staged rollouts. Treat single tests as informative but insufficient for full-scale spend. If you do these 3 things, you turn model projects into measurable bets.
If this episode felt practical, download the toolkit from our show page to get the experiment brief and dashboard template. Use them at your next funding conversation. They're built to translate tech experiments into board-ready decisions.
Thanks for listening. If you found this useful, subscribe to datascience.show, share the episode with a peer who signs off on budgets, and connect with us on LinkedIn to tell us which KPI you're measuring next. I'm Mirko. Until next time, clarity over complexity. And remember, strategy before technology.
Thanks for listening to datascience.show. If you found value in this episode, subscribe, share it with your network, and join us next time as we explore how data science drives smarter decisions and better business outcomes.